Palpation, one of the most, or probably the most important skill you need to hone in on and learn when you're becoming a soft tissue therapist. And it's really that ability to feel the different layers of tissue, hard tissues, soft tissues, tendinous tissues, connective tissues in the body, and also to help locate where you are in the body so that you can describe what's going on and pinpoint perhaps what's going on for your client. And a really good way to learn is, one, getting hands on bodies, but two, is to help you learn your anatomy and physiology. Sometimes looking at the muscles on a page, they don't really come to life, and it can be quite difficult to visualize them. I find I'm quite a visual learner, but I'm also quite kinesthetic. I like to touch and do things, that by adding more and more layers on my learning, it becomes easier and easier to learn. So here's just a quick trick for learning your muscles. Here we're looking at the quadriceps group. I want to learn to be able to palpate bones, tendons, and muscle tissue, as well as connective tissues. So it's a good muscle group. It's large, it's quite superficial for us to be able to palpate those different tissues. So I've opened my trail guide on page 300 here, which is Quadriceps Femoris. And I'm seeing that they attach into the tibial tuberosity, which it describes as a bump on the tibia, through tendon or the patella ligament. The patella sits within that tendinous tissue, which is a sesamoid bone. So it's a bone that sits within soft tissue. And then we have a tendinous attachment into the various muscles. So let's just look at rectus femoris, the most superficial. What is its action? It's got two actions because it crosses the hip. So it's used in hip flexion, but it's also used in extension of the knee. So first of all, I want to palpate its insertion of the tibial tuberosity. So just putting a relaxed palm onto the front of that tibia. And what I'm palpating for is, can I feel a lump, a bump in that bone? And by putting a really soft palm, a listening palm on it, I can really feel a bump in the tissue in front of that tibia. So I know that's my starting point. And I know from my picture that between there and the kneecap, which we're all familiar with, is tendinous tissue. So I can palpate that and move it and see, how does it move? Is it springy? Is it elastic? Does it move very much? How does it feel? And how will that differ to things like muscle tissue when we look at that? So in terms of the rectus femoris, I can see from my picture that maybe 3 or 4 inches up the tendon becomes muscle, so it's that musculotendinous junction. But really I can't see it, and I don't want you to see it. I want to be able to feel it. So it's important that we don't look when we're palpating, because that will help hone those senses in our hands. So it will help me a lot if that muscle contracts for me to be able to palpate it. So I'm going to place my hand in that rough area above the kneecap where I know tendon becomes muscle. Now I'm just going to ask my client, can you straighten your leg please? Excellent, and you can see that muscle contracts and pops up into my hand. So relax now, straighten your leg again, and relax. Lovely. So I can both feel and see where that tendon starts to become muscle. Now, what feels different? So now definitely in muscle belly here, I can feel a lot more movement through that tissue. It's a lot springier. It's a lot smoother in this case. And as I come back down to that point where I felt tendon become muscle, I feel like there's less movement in that tissue. It might be less comfortable for the client. It's less springy. It's more sinewy. I click over it a lot more, where we get blend from the vastus lateralis, medialis, rectus femoris, and the intermediates underneath. So straightening the leg, instantly you can see those muscles pop out, which makes that palpation exercise much easier and brings the picture to life.